Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, the Beauty Myth. Learn the beauty secrets of the goddess next door in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, the Beauty Myth at online booksellers everywhere today.
Last weekend, while Joe Biden was on the Charlemagne the God show, he said that if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, you ain't black. Well, I'm a black man, and I'm not for Donald Trump, and I'm not for Joe Biden. What color does that make me? And I know I am a black man. I know I was born a black man. And I can figure out that I don't want either of these candidates based on their records and based on their qualifications. Now, I have stated before I do not support your Donald Trump because I believe that he is not qualified to be the president of these United States because he does not have the experience in public administration, nor does he have the experience in managing government affairs. And I'm not for your Joe Biden because his record as related to black people is extremely heinous. And when you take a critical examination of Joe Biden's record, whether it be the laws he wrote and passed back in the 1980s regarding crack cocaine and powder cocaine, the laws regarding asset seizure that disproportionately affected black people, or the 1994 crime bill, which disproportionately led to African Americans being imprisoned, or the Three Strikes and You're Outlaw, which led to more and more black men winding up becoming incarcerated. All of his policies have led to the mass incarceration of black men and has led to the complete possible collapse of the black family here in America. And that's why I would not vote for your Joe Biden, because your Joe Biden doesn't support black people, and your Joe Biden's policies have led to the further oppression of black people. But this does not answer the critical question, what am I to a Joe Biden or a Donald Trump? Because your Joe Biden again said that if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or you're Trump, you ain't black. So what color am I in the eyes of your Joe Biden? Am I a black man or am I something else? Because he's saying that black people are only black if they consider him to be the ideal candidate. And I have to say that that statement is not only filled with hubris, it is extremely racist, and it shows the paternalistic view that your Joe Biden has regarding black people. Because to him, you're only considered black if you support him and his policies. However, his policies have been anti-black. And this is something black people really need to consider before they go out here and vote and follow the left's narrative that tells us that we need to support Joe Biden because Donald Trump is a racist. Well, let's look at the racism in this statement because, again, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Trump, then you ain't black. Shows us how condescending and paternalistic your Joe Biden is regarding black people. And while he's sitting there alleging that Donald Trump is a racist, he can't see his own racism that he's participating in. And that is one of the great Achilles heels of the 2016 left, is that they cannot see how they alienate voting blocs by making these extremely paternalistic and condescending statements that really show how racist they are and really show us how they have taken voting blocs like the black vote for granted. Because that's the same mistake they made in 2016 believing they could just take the black vote for granted, and they wound up losing 7% of that black vote because black men were frustrated about seeing all of these brothers winding up dead at the hands of police, or these beta white males like your George Zimmerman, and not getting any sort of recourse out here as related to our criminal justice system. And the viewpoint of the president at the time was to take the black vote for granted. The viewpoint of the candidate running to preserve his legacy was to take the black vote for granted. And they wound up with egg on their face when they found out they were losing black votes and black people wound up staying home. Well, Joe Biden doesn't give people an incentive to go out here and vote for him with this type of statement. In fact, he believes that he has the black vote in the bag. And this statement is not really, again, helping him, because when it comes down to black people, thanks to new black media out here, more and more black people are becoming aware of the power of the black vote, and more black people are looking at these candidates and saying they want something more than "you're not Donald Trump." Because to tell me that we're going to replace one bigot with another is not a change that most black people have an incentive to vote for. And when we look at your Joe Biden's agenda, we don't see much in terms of tangibles. No, he's believing that we're going to vote for him because he's not Donald Trump. And again, that platform is just not strong enough to get an election won. Because in order to win an election, you need to start offering some sort of tangibles to black people, because it's tangibles that give black people an incentive to vote. And most black people, when we look at Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I'm not seeing much in terms of tangibles to get myself, a registered voter, to go out here and vote for either candidate. I've been registered to vote ever since I was 18 years old, but when I look at this crop of candidates, I don't see anybody I want to vote for, because I don't see anybody focusing on the issues I want focused on, like a investment in America's men, dealing with America's ongoing man crisis, which continues to get worse, and dealing with the idea of, again, fixing things to help black men out here, or a black agenda where black communities can receive tangibles in terms of economic reparations, in terms of economic empowerment, and in terms of a justice system where we can see people like your George Zimmerman finally get punished for the crimes they commit against black people, and people like the people who murdered Ahmaud Arbery wind up in prison where they belong for the acts of terrorism and violence they perpetrate against black men. That's the kind of tangibles I want to see in terms of justice, and I want to see tangibles in terms of economics. And again, when you have a candidate who believes that he's going to say that you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Trump, then you ain't black, well, he's dismissing a large population of black men and women, because a large population of black men and women, we want to hear what kind of tangibles you plan on offering once you win in November 3rd, and you have control over the executive branch of the United States of America. We want to hear what tangibles you are going to bring to black communities in terms of earmarks, in terms of government programs, and in terms of reparations, which are a separate program as related to policy. We're not hearing anything about policy. I mean, Lift Every Voice was nothing but garbage. It was more of the same, and I'm sorry, it just wasn't good enough as related to, as what I see, as related to policy. No, when it comes down to black voters, we are more and more saying what we want, and we're not going to be dictated to, and we're not going to be dictated to by a candidate who continues to talk down to us, and a political party which continues to take the black vote for granted, because them taking the black vote for granted is what cost them in 2016, cost them in 2018, and sadly in 2020 nobody has learned anything. They think everybody who speaks and criticizes them is a Trump supporter. Well, I am not a Trump supporter. I do not support Donald Trump, but I have a problem with this party because this party, just like the right, takes people for granted, and it does not look to protect the interests of black people, nor does it look out for the interests of the average working American. And that's the big problem here, is that they believe that either you're on one side or the other, and we've gotten this Crips versus Bloods mentality going on with the right and the left, and there's no balance as related to the center. And again, they both take the black vote for granted, and they believe that they can just get black votes as related to numbers without offering any tangibles, and they don't go looking to ask what tangibles we want. And that is the big problem, because we are looking for a black agenda to be addressed, and if we get a black agenda addressed, then we have an incentive to vote. Because if nobody wants to address the black agenda, then black people have all the reason to stay home and stick with 4 more years of Trump, because if I'm not getting any sort of tangibles from either political party, then I have no reason to vote for either political party. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, subscribe.